Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody, on this special episode number 30 of the show about the show. I am very, very pleased and excited to have former Major League relief pitcher and closer Kyle Farnsworth with me on the program today to talk about his career. He played for a lot of different teams. We're going to ask him about what that's like. Also, what's the pressure like trying to save a game in the ninth inning and what he has been up to since leaving the game. So without any further ado, here he is, Kyle Farnsworth. Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
Doing well. Hey, thanks for coming on the podcast today. So you were drafted by the Cubs in 1994 in the 47th round, but you didn't actually sign until May of 95. Can you kind of talk about the draft process?
No, I really didn't know that much about it, but I got drafted out of high school in the 47th round by the Cubs. I had a full scholarship to go to a junior college down in Tipton, Georgia, Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College. So, to me, I didn't think I was ready yet to do the minor league system. So, since I had the scholarship to go to play college, I decided to go there for a year and, hone my skills a little bit better and just go from there. And back then, there was a draft and follow system, so they could draft a guy and follow him before the next draft, and if they wanted to keep him, they would sign him or whatnot. If not, he didn't re-enter the draft. So that's what that system was. I don't think that's around anymore. It went out a while ago, but that's how it all started.
Sure. Now, you actually ended up, when you did sign with the Cubs in 1995, you actually debuted for them in 99, and you played for them through the 2004 season. What do you remember about playing for the Cubs?
Just grateful that they gave me an opportunity to be able to, play the game that I love doing. It was definitely a fun experience, from the minor leagues, to the big league call up to my time there in Chicago. There's ups and downs, but that's just part of the game and stuff like that. So you just got to take the good with the bad, and I just enjoyed every moment of it.
Now, for those of you who are listening, a little piece of Kyle Farnsworth trivia for you. He was the winning pitcher in the final game played at Three Rivers Stadium on October 1st, 2000. Did you know that?
Yes, I did, actually. Then
you did? Okay.
Jamie Arnold got to say it.
Okay, sure.
Yep.
Now, you would you kind of consider yourself a journeyman?
I think all relievers are, in a way.
Okay. Sure.
That's just the way I look at it. Unless you're a closer or anything like that, middle relief guys, they're going to bounce around from team to team. And that's just part of the game. As long as I'm able to play for a team, I don't care how many times I bounce around, just as long as someone wants me.
And that's a good segue, because you actually ended up playing two stints for your next team, which was the Detroit Tigers. In February of 2005, you were traded to the Tigers for Bo Flowers, Scott Moore, and Roberto Nova. What do you remember about that first stint with the Tigers?
It was a tough team. We didn't do too well, but the group of guys that were there on the team, we meshed real well together. Had a good time, but things didn't turn out the way we wanted them to, and then I believe I got traded at the deadline in 05. But that was really one of the first times I really got an opportunity to close as well as with the Tigers. When I got traded over to the Braves, really started having success in that role.
Now, while you were with the Tigers, you got traded at the trade deadline in 2005, and we'll get to that in a second. But you had a rather interesting encounter against the Kansas City Royals at Comerica Park one day. What happened?
I think who was pitching, I want to say it was Ronaldo Hernandez with Kansas City, and Carlos Guillen was. I think that was Carlos Guillen who was hit. I believe Hernandez hit him in the foot with a pitch or something, and the game started going down to first base. Umpire said, no, you didn't get hit. So Hernandez said, you want to get hit? I'm going to hit you in the head. Next pitch, Carlos gets hit in the head. So that's when eventually, we got to run in from the bullpen. I'm just going in there just trying to separate our guys from their guys. But, everything got calmed down for the most part. And things started up again, and I went in to try to break everybody up. And I think I was going in there pushing our guys away and getting their guys away. And I think I pushed the uphill. And he said something to me before that I kind of just went after him. That was it.
Sure. Now you did get traded, like I said, at the trade deadline to the Braves for Zach Minor and Ramon Colon. What do you remember about that? Because you only spent a couple months with Atlanta that time in the 2005 season before signing a deal with the Yankees. What do you remember about that deadline trade?
I had an idea something was going to happen.
Sure. Hello? I think we might have lost Kyle there. I'm sorry, folks. He he is traveling. He's doing a little bit of the game time stuff, but yeah, he did drop the call. The call did drop, so we will try to get Kyle back here shortly. But yeah, he was talking about, you can kind of see the mentality he had. He mentioned that scuffle that he had in Detroit. He was going in there trying to separate guys, and Jeremy Affeldt, said something to him, and he went after him, and that's all about, guys protecting their players. So yeah, so he is back now. What do you remember about, that's okay. So what do you remember about the Braves, that trade of the Braves? You kind of said you thought something was on the horizon.
Yes, of all teams to be traded to, it was Atlanta, from the area, so it was good to be able to pitch in front of stuff like that. But to be able to pitch with, I think Smoltz was on that team when I pitched, Chipper and all them. So it was
sure.
It was a great opportunity to go there and help that team get to the playoffs again. Their history of 13, 14 times in a row in the playoffs. So that's definitely something that was amazing. So I just went in there and just try to just be myself and not to get anybody's way and just go out there and do my job.
Now, the following season, you signed with probably the most popular and probably most disliked franchise in all of baseball, the New York Yankees. They had obviously had Tom Gordon in there, and you came in as the primary setup man to replace him. 3-year deal, $17 million. At that point, it was reported that the Rangers had offered $3 and $16.5 plus some incentives. What made you pick the Yankees?
Just the opportunity to play, with another great franchise. It was an opportunity to hopefully get to the playoffs again. Those are things that you want to be able to be on teams like that, to be able to win a World Series, because that's the main goal. So I just think about the teams I had the best opportunity to do like that, and the best opportunity, for myself to go out there and perform. So, it was up and down, time there with the Yankees, but at the same time, I'm just blessed to be able to keep on playing.
Absolutely. And you struggled in 2006. You had an ERA of about just under 4.5, and the same with 2007. So the Yankees released you, and you signed with the Tigers, and you returned to the Tigers. You got traded. I'm sorry.
Traded, yeah.
You actually got traded for a Hall of Famer in Pudge Rodriguez.
Yep.
So, yeah, what's that like? I mean, what's that like for you to be like, oh, well, at the time you're like, okay, I got traded, but now that he's in the Hall of Fame, is that something you're kind of a little proud of? Hey, I got traded for a future Hall of Famer?
No, not really. I mean, I knew him when my time with the Tigers. So, but I guess it just kind of shows my value and stuff like that. But
Absolutely.
at that time, 2008, I was doing well with the Yankees. I finally figured it out and stuff like that, and getting traded when I started doing well. So it was tough. But it's just part of the game. You got to realize it's business, and you just got to go with it.
Now, I think one thing that people always talk about is they talk about the pressure of pitching in New York and the aura of Yankee Stadium and all that kind of stuff, and the rivalry that they have with the Red Sox. Is that real? Like, when you're a Yankee, do you feel that more so compared to being on another team?
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely a bit more, I'm not going to say pressure because it's really not what it is, but just to be able to go out there and perform day in and day out, because that's what they expect, and that's what you should expect out of your own self, go out there and do the best you can. But, the game is hard enough as it is, and I think I did that a few times and tried to do too much instead of just trying to sit back and just relax and just, do what I was capable of doing and not try to, do things I wasn't able to do, or just go out there and just pitch. It's definitely a different limelight and arena as opposed to, smaller market teams, but, it's still a baseball game. You still got to go out there and do the best you can and do your job.
I want to ask you this flat out because I personally think that it is, and you might be a little biased being a baseball player and a former Yankee, but is the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry the best rivalry in all of sports, and why?
I don't know. There's Cubs-Cardinals, which is pretty good. I was part of that one, and that was a lot of fun.
Sure.
It's tough to decide. It's definitely a good time when those two teams play together. It's going to be an interesting game, that's for sure. Even with the fans, the fans are crazy about it. So I think that's what adds it in is how crazy the Yankees and Red Sox fans. Same thing with the Cubs, Cardinals. But
sure,
that's what makes the game great. I mean, you get the fans into the games, and they root for their teams and their favorite players and stuff like that. So definitely in the bullpen where you can see stuff going on in stands, fights and stuff like that. And it gets crazy how some fans go after it and stuff like that. But those are two good rivalries for sure. But it's hard to go wrong with them.
Now, when you're obviously, you just said when you're in the bullpen, you can kind of hear some of the fans, and you talked about briefly there, the levels they go to. When you're on the mound, how do you kind of block all that out? I mean, obviously, the thing I respect the most about baseball players, but especially relief pitchers, is just their intense focus. And obviously, you can't block out all the fans, but how do you block it out enough to be able to focus on the batter, especially in a high-pressure situation?
Honestly, I don't know. I wish I could have her. But I mean, you just got to take in, all the training, the mental preparation, and the physical preparation that you've done, years before, days before. Just
sure.
getting ready for those situations, and when the time arises, it's just kind of like second nature. Your job is to focus in, on that mitt and visualize the pitch you want to throw and where you want to throw it, as opposed to trying to hear what's going on. And, some people always talk about that tunnel vision you get, and that's kind of what it is. You have to slow the game down to be able to get in that kind of a zone and just, really focus and concentrate on, your job at hand, because if you let the moment get too big, that's what makes you get out of hand and go crazy. You just got to try to slow everything down, take deep breaths, and just trust your ability.
Now, one of the things, obviously, about being a relief pitcher as opposed to being a starting pitcher is, I hear a lot on, MLB Network or Baseball Tonight or whatever it is. is that you have to have a short memory. How do you, and that's easier said than done, because a lot of times, you'll have a situation where your starter goes out there, he pitches a really good game, and you give up a walk-off, or something happens, there's some bad luck, and you lose. How do you go about, as a relief pitcher, just, leaving it at the ballpark and forgetting it and having a short-term memory and coming back the next day and starting over?
That's definitely part of the hardest part to do. Because the newspapers are all over you. You're basically the goat. You're kind of like the lineman of football. You don't get any recognition until they do something bad. So, but
right.
It's tough. But I mean, that's part. You really have to have that short-term memory. And that's why. We're able to play 162 games because got the next game to focus on. And as relievers, they have to focus and get mentally prepared every day. And I think that's the toughest part, or the biggest difference between the starters and relievers. The starters get mentally focused, 1 out of 5 days. The relievers have to do that every day. The both jobs are tough, both mentally and physically, but you definitely have to have a short-term memory and go out there and just trust your ability day in and day out.
I can't imagine it would feel all that great, but tell me, what does it feel like when you actually, and not you in particular, but I mean as a relief pitcher, what does it feel like when as a relief pitcher you go out there and you blow the game, or you lose the game, or the game changes when you're in the game and the starter loses a potential win? What's that like, if you give up, say, a walk-off, and you have to go back into the dugout and tell that guy, like, hey, man, sorry, I lost the game for you?
No, it's definitely it's not a good feeling to have, because, you don't want to go out there and not do our job. I think.
Sure. I think we might have lost Kyle again here. Yeah, it looks like that call dropped. I do apologize, folks. He obviously is on his cell phone, and he's calling into this show. So we're gonna get Kyle back here. But yeah, you can tell the mental aspect of the game for a closer that he touched on is just, it's so much more different than it is for a reliever. You heard him talk about how for a reliever it's once every 5 days, for starters, once every 5 days, but as a reliever, you have to be mentally strong and mentally capable and able to go every single day. And that's the tough part. And that I think that's the thing that a lot of fans have a hard time with is, when you are a reliever, is having to, have that mental makeup, and that's I think why relievers don't get enough credit these days. So you in 2008, we'll get back to your career now. In 2008, you signed a 2-year deal for a little over $9 million with the Royals, and what do you remember about that?
No, the great town, great organization. It's probably one of the most underrated cities and stadiums out there. It's beautiful. I had a great time out there. It's kind of, from the country, and that's definitely on the country, and that's, I enjoyed my time out there for the 2 years I was there, so I enjoyed it.
In 2010, you were reacquired by the Braves for 4 players. You only spent the rest of the 2010 season with the Braves. What do you remember about the rest of that season? You talked about earlier your first stint, Smoltz and Chipper and guys like that. Was it kind of a different feel that second time around, or was it kind of like being back in familiar territory?
It was, like being back in familiar territory, but it was also, I believe that was one of Bobby Cox's last year. He was retiring after that, so I believe everybody wanted to do well and get back in the playoffs for him and put him on a high note. But, it was like I was back at home again. playing for the home team. And again, it's just a great opportunity to get back in the postseason. And, it didn't end the way we wanted to. I think we got knocked out in the first round. But, it was another good experience.
So in January of 2011, you signed a 1-year deal with the Braves, which was the following off season after the season ended with the Braves. And then in February of 2013, you signed a 1-year deal again. What do you remember about your time in Tampa? I've always heard that stadium doesn't draw very well because it's kind of hard to get to.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit long ways from, Orlando. Any kind of like this, there's Tampa, but, it's like maybe 30 minutes. Orlando is like an hour and a half. And then you get a lot of fans who are, Yankees fans, Red Sox fans. So there's really no hometown fans, not that many. It's a great stadium too. And just like you were saying, it's a tough. Not so tough. It's just a long way for a lot of people to drive to come see them. Which was sad because we had good teams. While I was there. And we didn't have that much fan support unless big market clubs would come into town. And, it was just one of the things, but, we had a great time.
And then after you were DFA'd in August of 2013 and released the next day, about a week later you signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you recorded your first save actually on September 11th, 2013 against the Texas Rangers in an interleague game. What do you remember about that first save?
I just know it was hot. Typical time in Texas, but it was just go out there to do my job. No matter what team you're with, every time you're outside the mound, you have to go out there and do the best you can to perform. I had a great time doing it. I kind of felt like I had something to prove, but at the same time, I just wanted to go out there and just keep on playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so 2014, you actually ended up signing with the New York Mets, and you ended up getting called up almost immediately out of spring training because Bobby Parnell, the Mets closer at the time, was injured, and you guys also had Jose Valverde. You ended up becoming the closer after recording a couple saves. What do you remember about that, especially the Subway Series against the Yankees?
No, I enjoyed my time there. It was kind of a little bit different atmosphere as it was from the Yankees, but I was only there for a month and a half. I don't even remember if we did face them. Oh, we did. I think we faced them. I can't even remember. All these teams run together, but
sure.
No, I'm trying to think if we did or not. I think we did. I'm not sure, but if we did,
okay.
It was a good time. If we, it's just one of those rivalries that, kind of like Cubs, White Sox and stuff like that. But that's what's it's good about the game. You get the inner city, the rivalries and stuff like that, and fans love it.
Now, one of the, we're pretty much through your full major league career at this point. We got about 6 minutes left. We got a couple of really interesting things that I want to talk about. Talk about your 2015 season, where you played, and what that experience was like.
I was down in Mexico. They called me up. I forget what it was. It might have been in January or something like that, and I was playing semi-pro football at the time. So I told them I had to get, it was going to take me a couple months to get my arm ready and stuff like that. So I think I joined them in, I want to say, 1st of July, and they had me setting up down there. It was a different experience. It was an opportunity to go out there and keep on playing the game I love. Even though it was out in Mexico, there's no great atmosphere. Definitely different from here in the States. They got mascots running around on the field, steel drums playing, music going on. It's crazy, but They love their baseball down there, that's for sure. And it was a good time.
One of the more interesting things is a lot of people don't know this, but the term is pitchers are the Burt Blyleven, who's a Twins play-by-play or commentator, likes to say that pitchers are the best athletes on the field. Now, you could probably take this a step further because you actually played football for the Florida Football Alliance. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it was after, it had to been 2014 after I got released by the Astros. I've always wanted to play football. I was thinking about trying to do that probably earlier on in my career, play baseball and football probably like when I was in my mid-20s, but it's never panned out. So, I've always had aspirations of doing it. So I said, you know what? I just got released by the Astros. I'm going to go home, look up, and try to find what kind of semi-pro football teams are in the Florida. See if there's any Orlando. Sure enough, I found, the Orlando Phantoms. So I went out, they had an open tryout in, I believe, October. I went out and tried out, made the team. And that year I ended up being the starting defensive end. Maybe started team, led the team in tackles, sacks, a few other things that year. And
yeah, you finished with 11 sacks that season. That's impressive, no matter what league you're in.
Appreciate it. I've been playing with them for the past, this was the fourth year, but this year I wasn't able to play because I blew my knee out December. So, but we won the championship this year, went undefeated. So, it's been, I've been very fortunate to, play baseball for a long time and able to, play, semi-pro football the last 4 years with the Orlando Phantoms. And, it's been a lot of fun, that's for sure. I'm definitely blessed to be able to do things I'm able to do.
Sure. Now, Kyle, we got just under 3 minutes left. So the big news in the game of baseball so far this season has been Shohei Ohtani succeeding really well as a pitcher and a hitter. And then also Robinson Cano, he just got suspended for 80 games. What are your impressions on Shohei Ohtani? Obviously, not since Babe Ruth have we seen somebody be a pitcher and a hitter this successfully.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. I think it's good for the game, man. I haven't seen anybody do that really. I think the last person I've actually seen that was a position player that was a pitcher was Brooks Keichnick. I believe it was when he was with Milwaukee. They had him in the outfield, and he'd come in and pitch a few times. But as far as doing it consistently, like Ohtani, and with the stuff that he has, 95 to 100, splitty, and when he comes and hits, with the power that the speed he has. It's definitely impressive, the athletes that are coming up now these days, whether it be from overseas or here in the States or anywhere else. Athletes are a different breed. They're getting bigger, faster, stronger, and it's definitely showing on the field. And, I saw the thing about Robinson Cano. I played with him, with the Yankees and stuff like that. It's sad to see something like that happen. We've always told, in our players' meetings and stuff like that, we should be very aware of what we put in our bodies because ignorance is not an excuse. You should always ask you always get a list of things to prevent and stuff like that, and you should always know what the doctor you're getting from the doctor or what you're putting in your body because it's going to come back on the person on you. It's not going to come back on the doctor and like that because you're putting it in your own body. So you have to it's sad, just because you're a player, but you don't have to take the suspension for if you want to be able to do something like that, you don't have to pay the price if you get caught. It's just the way it is. It's too bad.
Kyle, we got about 20 seconds left. Yes or no, with knowing that he failed the test, is Robinson Cano a Hall of Famer? Yes or no?
As a second baseman, it's I don't know. I haven't really looked at I haven't really looked at all his numbers, but I know they're pretty good. Stuff like that.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
I would probably say he would be. It's
Okay.
I would definitely mess up his chances of being in it now.
Sure. Well, Kyle, we have to go. I have taken up enough of your time today. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today. And best of luck to you in your future endeavors, whatever they may be. Maybe someday we'll see you in the NFL.
All right, well, age is catching up on me on that one, but all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
That was reliever Kyle Farnsworth. He talked a lot about his extensive career and kind of the rivalries and all that kind of stuff. That was a really fun and interesting interview. I thought the last 30 seconds about Shohei Ohtani that he talked about was really good. I'm going to try and see if I can get Brooks Kieschnick on and talk to him a little bit. Talk to him about the pitching and the hitting aspect, because I think that's really interesting and something you guys would like to hear. Got 2 more episodes coming up today. I have former major leaguer Eric Rasmussen coming on a little bit later, and then from KSTP Channel 5 in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, the host of the Scoop podcast, Darren Doogie Wolfson, will join me for about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll talk Twins and a little bit of Timberwolves. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you down the road in podcast land.